Hi guys, and welcome to another episode of the Nicola Dawkins podcast. You'll notice today I haven't introduced it as Candid Conversations on the Nicola Dawkins podcast because today my conversation is with you guys. This is a new part of the podcast. It's a new segment which I'm excited to introduce. And the segment consists of me having direct conversations with you guys in between my conversations with my good sis Terry Lee and in between my conversations with the guests that I have joining me on the podcast. These kind of episodes are really important to me because if you've been following the Purpose platform for some time, you will remember that I would do the lives via the Purpose platform, just sometimes giving a word, giving some encouragement, giving some personal experiences and just letting you guys tap into the journey and my journey. And you will also see on the YouTube, if you've been following our YouTube for a while, that there were some videos and things that I would put out of a similar nature. So with that being said, they were always very well received. I always got such great feedback from it. I thought it's only right I bring it to the podcast as well. So I'm excited. Throughout this segment, I will be bringing you guys along with me on the journey. I'll be bringing you guys along with me just with words that are kind of put on my heart that I feel like actually this is something that needs to be shared. And it's an exciting time. I'm looking forward to it. So we're gonna jump right in. I actually feel weird in the podcast setting without a guest because this is, of course, the first solo episode. So you guys are with me. Today, I really want to discuss prayer. And funny, I went back and forth with this topic today because I was going to discuss the power of prayer, but then I thought actually I have conversations with my friends, quite a few of my friends who are not as mature in faith or as far ahead in faith as I am, and maybe some of my other friends are. So sometimes when you speak and you say, the power of prayer and pray about it, and the question is, how do you pray? How do you communicate with God? So I actually wanted to start there with this topic because I want to speak to those of you who maybe you want to see, an act of faith in your life. You want to see what God can do for you. You've been hearing about the amazing things God can do and how lit he is, because God is lit, but you don't really know where to start. People are telling you to pray, but what is a prayer? And with myself personally, when was it? I think it was probably about 2 or 3 years ago is when I became more conscious with my prayers, I would say. I've always been a woman of faith. I've always believed in God. But you've probably heard me say a couple of times on this podcast or just before in other interviews that I've done, I didn't know God. So I had always believed in God, but I didn't know God. And when I say that, I mean, me and God didn't have a relationship. Me and God, well, God knew me, of course, but I didn't go back and forth with God. I didn't consult God for every decision I was making at the time. I didn't consult him when, there was a big problem in my life. I'd think, how am I going to get this resolved? I would go by my own resources and devices to get it resolved. And then I go, thank you, God. Instead of actually saying, God, what is your plan? What is your will? How can you help me get this issue resolved? And I feel like that is where I am more so now in my faith and in my relationship with God. And when talking to people and talking to my friends and expressing the relationship I have with God and the power of prayer, a lot of them don't really understand, well, how do I pray? And that's just what I wanted to kind of dive into today. For me personally, if you follow the Purpose platform, you will know I post daily prayers via the Purpose platform story every morning. And those prayers are all written solely by myself. And I've been doing that for nearly 18 months. So nearly a year and a half since the 1st of Jan 2021. And even being able to communicate with God in that way is not something I've always been able to do. It took a while and some confidence. And again, just that relationship to mature to even get to that part where not only am I praying for myself, but I'm praying for others or I'm sharing prayers with others as well. And I just want to talk you guys through that segment of the journey to help you on your journey, really, of thinking, how can I communicate with God? What does a prayer look like? I think for me, to begin with, I was very intimidated by prayer because I would go to church sometimes in my teens, and you got your, the lit pastor, the one when they say come to the front if your week's been heavy and you need prayer, come to the front. And you always got your one pastor or your one minister's like, please let Pastor X, Y, and Z come pray for me because I know the prayers are powerful. And for me, that's how I really was for a very long time, is relying on the power of other people's prayer to get me from A to B, which is fine, because God hears all prayers and he knows where you are in your journey. So if you are not specifically able to or equipped to deliver the prayers that's on your heart, having someone else pray for you is definitely effective in the meantime. But yeah, I didn't think that I was able to pray like them. And that was what made it quite intimidating for me. I thought, I ain't going to pray because I can't put down like that. They'd be praying in tongues and all these things. And I thought prayer had to be decorative. And what I learned along the way is actually, first of all, God knows our heart. And for me, I think that was the game changer for me, because it's like, oh, God knows my heart already. So whatever I'm feeling or whatever it is I have to say, God already knows. So if God already knows what I have to say and what's on my heart, I just need to vocalize it to him and ask him to help me in whatever way it is, or give me clarity, or whatever the situation may be, support me in which way I feel necessary. So that was something that was a bit of a game changer for me, is understanding that actually God knows your heart. Even when you're explaining your problem to pastor who's going to pray for you, you might not even feel confident enough to be transparent and tell pastor really what's going on and what you need full prayer for. But you let her know, it's been a heavy week, or you let him know it's been a heavy week. Can you just pray for me? Whereas God knows exactly what we've been doing. He knows what's on our heart, and we just need to vocalize that to him. So when I realized that actually God knows my heart, that was something that was a game changer for me. Another thing that was a game changer for me is understanding that prayer doesn't have to be decorative. So when you do see them church warriors and prayer warriors going hard and you think my prayers ain't matching that, that's totally fine. God doesn't need prayers to be decorative. He doesn't need it to be extravagant. It can literally be in form of conversation. You can literally write a prayer letter. You can just speak to him, or even just sit and spend time with him and say, God, right now I can't find the words, but please search my heart. And I feel like something like that has been very helpful as well, because I've grown in prayer and I'm able to articulate myself sometimes when it comes to God with what I need, or if I need clarity on something, or if I need his support or direction or whatever it might be. But sometimes, and I'm sure we all face it, it's exhausting. Like, we just feel exhausted. You're like, God, I know you said to come to you in times of need, but right now I need a rest. Like, I need to chill. I need to not have to let you know what I need from you right now. Sometimes that's what you need. And just sitting with God in that moment and saying, Lord, right now I don't have the words, but please search my heart. Please search my heart and just let me know what I need to do, or the direction I need to walk in to get myself out of this situation or into that situation. Even that is very, very powerful. I will say also, something that I found really helpful when it comes to praying is looking out for the answers and trying not to be too, what's the word? When basically I might want, say you're asking God for 50 grand. Let's just throw that out there. Say you're asking God for 50 grand and you say, Lord, please deliver me that 50 grand. And all you're doing is looking in your account. You're looking for ways how that specifically 50 grand is finding its way to you, instead of actually looking at the other ways God might be working and the people he's putting you in touch with that will ultimately result in you getting that 50 grand, or the opportunities he's put on your table that might be able for you to get that 50 grand, or a form of creativity that he's given you that you can use for you to get to that 50 grand. Instead, you were just looking for the figure and for the money of how it's going to come to you, but not looking at the resources that he's given you for you to make it or to earn it. I hope that makes sense. So when praying for things, be open to how God is giving you the answers and the opportunities he lays out in front of you. I find that to be very helpful, because I was very set in my mind sometimes of asking God what I want, and I had an idea, and still do sometimes, of how it's going to show up. But what I realized is actually in having my own idea of how my prayer is going to be answered, it was blocking what God was trying to do around me, or what he had in store that was better for me. He might not have 50 grand for you. He might have 200K, But because you're so hell-bent on looking for that 50 grand, you can't see the 200K that's just right in front of you because you're one-track minded. So I think something like that I found very, very helpful, is just not putting limits on the prayers that you put out to God. Be open to what his response is going to be. And another thing I would say, it was what I learned. My uncle used to do Bible studies. And something I learned in Bible study that I found really helpful was the pattern of prayer. So he was basically sharing how we should pray and how to communicate effectively with God and what it should include. And it was like a greeting. So similar to the Lord's Prayer, if you know that Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name, etc., etc. So breaking down that prayer and just dissecting how it's designed is how he broke it down for us in the Bible study. And it was just to include things like greeting God. Sometimes I think you've probably heard me say, if you've been listening to previous episodes of the podcast, once I was praying and I was like, hi, morning God, how are you? And in my mind, I thought, that's a silly question. How is he going to answer that? And as soon as the thought came to my mind, out of nowhere, the big, bright sunshine just came beaming through my window. I was sitting in my living room and it just came beaming through my window. And it was like God going, yeah, like you think I can't respond. So even though he can't necessarily go, yeah, I'm good, man, what you said, like actually look out for the signs. And it was the energy behind the sun and the way it just appeared and then disappeared in a short time was just proof, and you feel it, you know that's God coming back to you. As your relationship with God matures, you're able to determine those little things. But yeah, I just found that quite helpful in terms of understanding how to pray is greeting God. Also, he said to hold God at his word. So in doing that, you should probably familiarize yourself with the Bible. I've said many of times before, I'm not very well versed in terms of the Bible. I can't pull scriptures for you and tell you this is that scripture and this is where it is, but I am familiar with the Bible, and I more so use Google to find scriptures for certain things, and I am working my way through the Bible for a study Bible as well. But just being able to say, God, you said X, Y, and Z, or in your promise you said this, so this is what I expect of you, because God's not sending any promises back void. If God made a promise, he's coming through and he's going to deliver on it. So something like that is what I found really helpful, is understanding the parts of the Bible and the promises that God's made, and then bringing that back to him. Like, Lord, this is what I require from you, and this is what you said you would do. That's really, really helpful. Also, just asking for forgiveness, making sure that when you're going forward to pray with a clean heart. If you're holding a grudge against someone, or if someone's done you wrong, your energy's all off, you're not in alignment, and you're coming forward to God, your prayers are not going to be as sincere as they need to be. And God is a God who says forgive others and he will forgive us. That's just how he works. And forgiveness is hard, especially, there are certain situations that are a lot more serious than others, or the pain that you're carrying from things that people may have inflicted upon you. But ultimately, holding on to a grudge is like drinking poison. You're just keeping yourself in a position of hurt, pain, anger, and the other person is going on with their lives. So always find it in your heart. And if you are struggling to forgive, ask God just to give you the strength to forgive, or just to remove that from your mind, because trust and believe me, he can. And we're not holier than thou out here. Like, there are certain situations when you're like, okay, I'm gonna get you. But you rein it back in and you say, no, do you know what? You have to operate on a certain level of integrity. You have to have a certain level, your energy, the way, like you have to be operating on a certain level for things to find you. And not even just speaking about prayer, but outside of prayer, you have to be operating on a certain level to receive the blessings. Because if your frequency is down here, the blessings that are up there with your name on it are not coming down to get you. You need to come up to get your blessings. And that's something I've learned. I've had situations, and when I say when you're growing, you will be tested. You will be tested. I have had situations last year, even in growth, where myself and my cousin, short story, myself and my cousin were going to watch the England match. Was it last year, 2021? We're going to watch the England match, and cut a long story short, we were on the way there. There was like a Uber driver who was blocking a road. We know how drivers get. Let's not. One thing, pray for my road rage. That's what we're going to do. We're going to pray for our road rage, because one thing that can really pull you out your character sometimes is your road rage. But the Uber driver was blocking the road, and the girl who was in the back was, you know, she had a lot to say. And cut a long story short, there are some people who will come in your path simply to throw you off of your... There are some people to come in your path that simply just want to throw you off of your frequency, because the energy the girl brought with her and the stuff that she done was not of God, and it was not of the energy and frequency that we were operating on. And you know when you're being pulled off your, like someone's trying to pull you off your stool. You know when the girl is not even responsible for her actions. She doesn't even realize she's being used as a vessel for an enemy. Sometimes you have to realize that people, and you have to be careful that it's not you, are being used as a vessel for the enemy, because you know where you're operating and where you are in a certain point in your life. And when things come across your path, or when people come across your path, or certain situations come across your path, and you know that situation or that person was specifically sent and designed to disrupt your peace, to take you off the path that you're walking on, you have to avoid it. You have to avoid it. Your natural instinct is going to tell you to react. And honestly, what that girl done, I won't even go into what that girl done, because this is a play to positivity, maybe one day. But what that girl done, I looked, I said, okay, and kept it moving. And that was one of the turning points in my life, I would actually say, because the old me, or before I became aware of how things will try and come and disrupt your peace, or before I came aware of, it's like growth. If you haven't already listened to my episode with my good sis Tell, Surrender into Growth, because it's all about growth. It's when you've changed and your mindset's different and you carry yourself differently, situations are going to come across your path to try and pull you off your stool. Situations are going to come across your path to try and bring you back to who you were, and bring your reactions back to how you would used to react. And you have to make a choice in that moment to stay true to your growth, to stay true to who you are in this day, and to continue to move ahead. And you see, once you step past, it's insane, and this has happened to me a few times. Once you step past the incident itself and you make a conscious choice to choose the high road, like our good sis Michelle Obama says, when they go low, we go high. When you choose high, what comes just after that, literally immediately after that, is unexplainable. It's a sense of reassurance in knowing that actually, by not reacting, the peace and the good tidings that come your way, it's insane. It's like you've just unlocked, it's like unlocking a jewel or unlocking a vault. You thought that you should react to that because of your old habits or your old ways, but the minute you don't react to it, the place you end up in just after is priceless. Honestly, it's priceless. So, and then actually you become familiar and you realize and you're able to identify, this was sent to take me off my stool, and it's just not today. It's not today. Okay. So just be mindful of that. Be mindful of that as you grow in faith, as you're able to start praying and communicating with God more, and the more blessed you are, is the more trials that will try and come your way to chip away at your faith, or to put doubt in your mind, or to put fear in your heart. So don't think that when things are going bad in your life, oh, this isn't working for me. No, it means you're on the right path. It means something great is about to happen, and this is coming to cause doubt in that. It's coming to stop you from walking into your truth, into your calling, into your blessings. So don't ever start doubting your path because things are not going the way that you thought they should be going. Actually, it means just past that moment, a breakthrough is going to happen. Something amazing is going to happen. Something in you is going to happen. The growth is going to happen. So be true to that. Be true to that. Be true to yourself, and never question your path, especially when you are walking in your truth, when you are walking in growth, when you're walking in your calling. Never question, I don't know if this is the right road for me. The high road ain't looking too good. The high road is the road. Sat Nav said high road is the road. Okay? But that just, with respect to prayer and bringing that full circle, I say all that to say, just make sure your heart is in the right place when you are praying. Try and get to a place of forgiveness or a place of peace, or at least let God know that you are consciously open to trying to forgive or move on from a situation that you've been harboring in your heart. So you're making room. Just make room for the blessings that God is getting ready to pour into your life. I say also that God meets us where we're at. And I've probably again said that in a previous episode. But for me, I realize God meets us where we're at. And like I say, if you are not decorative in prayer, if you're not practiced in prayer, that's totally fine. God knows exactly where you are. And he's even still looking out, even without praying. Like I said, it's only been 2 or 3 years that I've been in this place and in this moment. But actually, God's been looking out since way before. And when you get to know him and your faith starts growing, you give him the credit, like, oh, you was there. Oh, okay, I see you, God. You realize he's had your back. So there was a situation, how old was I? One of my 20s birthdays, mid-20s. And I remember I met my mum, I was going shopping, and she was like, did you thank God for allowing you to see through another year? And it was halfway through the afternoon by this time, and I was like, oh yeah, I actually forgot. Whereas now I don't even wake up in the morning without thanking God for allowing me to see a new day, or praying before I leave the house that God bless my steps as I leave this house. So he will meet us where we're at. And as you grow, and there was no lack of blessings during that time either. So don't think you're underqualified or unworthy, or I'm not, do you know what I mean? I'm not in this level of faith. I don't deserve this. No, you're deserving of God's love. We are all deserving of God's love. It doesn't matter where you are, what you're doing in life, where you're coming from. Trust me, the minute you pick up the phone to God, he's not gonna air your call. He will answer the call. So that's just some encouragement really, in terms of when you're trying to open up that communication with God, just come as you are. Come as you are and speak as you are. If it's a normal conversation like you're talking to a friend, talk to him in that way. If you need to sing, sing. If you need to write, if you prefer writing it down, write it down. Whatever you need to do. If you need to sit and be still in that moment and just allow God to hear your heart, sit and be still in that moment and allow God to hear your heart. And it's a constant work in progress. At times, you'll realize that, oh, I'm killing it in this prayer. Well, okay, and then at times you're like, I just don't have it in me. I just don't have it in me. And that's totally fine. That's totally fine. That's how life comes at you. But never stop. Even just never stop acknowledging God. Never stop trying. That's all God wants, is a trying heart, a willing heart, and an open heart. So, yeah, that's what I would say in terms of prayer. When I realized prayer, or should I say when I saw a true live representation of prayer working, was, and it's so random, but last year we went to a festival, me and a couple of my girls, we went to a festival, and there were so many things going on in that time, in that moment, in everybody's lives. And I said, child, we are not leaving this house today before we pray, okay? So we met up at my friend's house. Uber arrived outside, and we rounded everyone up, we prayed, and covered everything in that prayer. Like, honestly, we just asked God to bless every single moment of the day. It was supposed to rain on that day. It was one of those days. And it's funny because we got in our Uber. The taxi driver was completely, you know, them like good vibes taxi drivers. You know, when you know God sent you, thank you very much. Like, we knew God definitely patterned us with that driver, because there was about six of us or seven of us. And any normal or regular Uber driver just wouldn't have had the patience and the love that this driver had. We got to the festival. Before we even entered the gate, my friend lost her phone. Called the phone. Got hold of a security guard. He had it at the front of the gate. I lost my phone during that festival. Got my phone back. There were so many different moments in that day that were supposed to be, they weren't supposed to work out in our favor. They were supposed to be things to just knock us off our stool, not have the best day. But we really realize, and it's hard for me to vocalize it, but we really realize, all of us throughout that day, that we were blessed. Things that weren't supposed to work in our favor worked in our favor. We were covered. God patterned the day ahead before us. When God says he will go before you, he really went before us. We all got home safely. We had the best day. Things that weren't supposed to work in our favor worked in our favor. And we really thanked God. And don't forget, when you are praying and you see the fruits of your prayer, thank God. Just give God that glory, because he's really working. And sometimes you might think you need to get in a room with a particular person for an opportunity or a result, or you feel like you need this certain degree to get to a certain particular place in life. You don't need anything of the sort when God is involved. He might help you get a degree. You can't, let's be realistic, you can't necessarily be like a judge if you haven't studied to be a judge. But if you're talking supernatural, God will position you and make room for you in places that you feel like you shouldn't even belong. He will give you opportunities. He will bring hearts to you. He will genuinely, whatever he's called you to do, he will open up and move every roadblock in your way for you to be able to do it. And you just give him the glory. And you will need prayer along the way, because trust me, take it from me. And in one of these episodes, I will do a journey episode. So you will see on the YouTube, the Purpose Platform YouTube, there is a faith journey episode. I had an interview with a church, I think it's called Temple Way Church, last year. And they wanted to just discuss my faith journey. So there is a bit of information in there, but I will, to the podcast, 110% bring just faith journey. Just, where do I even start? Like, the woman who sits before you today is just nothing short of God's favor. Legit. In its entirety. And I owe it to you guys, and I owe it to God to share the journey. Because there's so much in me and so much to share. And honestly, it's just God's favor. God's favor. So in summary, I would say, in terms of prayer, come as you are. There's no right or wrong way to pray. If you just go to God with an open heart and believe that the most important thing alongside communicating with God is putting faith behind that prayer. If you go to God and you speak to him and you don't expect to hear a response, you think it's all faff in the air, there is no faith behind it. You probably won't hear back. If you're asking God for something, you're praying for something, you have to have faith behind the fact that it's going to happen. And if that specific thing that you're praying for doesn't happen, it just means it wasn't God's will, but there is something better in store for you. And even if that better in store for you doesn't seem like better now, God will work in your heart until he brings you to a place where you understand and receive what he has for you as better than what you thought you wanted for yourself. I hope that makes sense. But honestly, he's there. He's there. He's able. He's ready. He's waiting. He's willing. And there is no qualification that you need to get in step, to literally get in step and to holler at God today and say, do you know what? This is what I've heard. I want to experience the power of prayer, literally. And when you do, you won't revert. Honestly, when you do, you will not revert, because he's lit. God's that right-hand man. Trust me. The things he can do and just the places he can put you and the things you're supposed to feel that you can actually just release onto him when you have that faith that he will take it and lift it off of you, it equips you for life. And we all know life don't take a day off. Life be lifing, for sure. Like, life does not take a day off. And we can all agree, if not on anything else, we can all agree that the pressures of life and just sometimes the day-to-day can feel like a lot. It can feel like a lot. But when you have faith in God and you know that you can send up a prayer to ask him to lift the weight, your circumstances are the same, but you're floating, it's just the most powerful place to be. You get to live life in peace above all. So I hope this episode has been helpful for you guys, fruitful for you guys. Please drop any questions, any feedback. I've had a few people say, as they're listening along, they're talking too, either agreeing or responding, which is tough because I know obviously it's a podcast, it's pre-recorded. Maybe I will start doing lives soon after the podcasts are released just to get you guys feedback and stuff. But in the meantime, drop the comments either on Instagram, on YouTube. The email is always open, info@thepurposeplatform.com. The DMs are always open. And of course, you can reach out to myself directly. I'm Nicola, founder of The Purpose Platform, host of Candid Conversations Live and the Nicola Dawkins podcast. This has been another episode, and I will be glad to see you guys again soon. Thanks for tuning in.